that Mr. Roxon just gave us, and indeed what you're hearing the finance minister tell us about 1 cedi on the fuel that we'll be buying moving forward.
Look, I don't want to compare, but I think just to give an example, I was on the committee that looked at the VRA spillage. When you compare VRA workers to ECG workers, they don't compare.
What does that mean?
The VRA workers were prepared to die to save the dam. They were prepared to die to save the dam because they knew the impact of the dam on the country. They saw the dam as the heart of Ghana, so they would do anything to save the dam. ECG workers do all of them have that kind of mindset? If ECG is going to work, workers in ECG should be prepared to die for ECG. They shouldn't be the ones who go out and suggest to clients that, oh, we can do X, we can do Y, we can reduce your electricity, your houses. They shouldn't do that. They should be prepared to stand firm where ECG is concerned. And I'm not saying all workers of ECG do that, but you have corporates in ECG who do that kind of thing. If you continue to do that kind of thing, what are you doing? You're drawing money out of ECG because people then won't be able to pay the kind of rates and tariffs that they're supposed to pay. So for me, that is key. Now, when you come to the finance minister's suggestion on 1 cedi
on fuel,
that has got to do with the economy. The moment the cedi depreciates, it's going to affect it. So the economy has to be run in such a way that the cedi can stay strong with regards to the other currencies. If that doesn't happen, then we are in for a big challenge. For me, we are between a rock and a hard place. When you look at the debt that Roxon talked about, 1.7 billion, 2 billion deficit every month, 80 billion
Ghana
cedi deficit, that's about $3 billion. How are we going to pay this? How? Tell me how. And the moment the energy sector comes to a standstill, the country is gone. We cannot afford it. So I reckon that we have to be able to sacrifice. However, it is up to the politicians to use the money judiciously.
Sacrifice, that's what we heard during DDEP.
Well, we say it's a new government. We say they are determined to reduce this by 2026. So if it so happens that they are not transparent and accountable for the monies that will be collected, then it's going to be difficult to reduce this kind of debt. The debt is humongous. No private company would be able to do what? Sustain itself with this kind of debt because it's a government entity. But energy is key. In doing so, we also need to look at the mix, the electricity mix we have in the country, and see how we handle that mix properly. The moment we start bringing down the debt, we have to make sure that we can sustain it by making ECG profitable. I saw the technical team, some of the recommendations
the 7-member committee.
Yes, some of the recommendations they made. And one of the recommendations was that in terms of the revenue side, that should be given out as a concession. And then I think number 2, they talked about other parts of ECG being given out of concessions. Unfortunately, I don't know what it was that brought them to that decision, but I don't think other parts of ECG should be given out as a concession. You know what happened? I think it was somewhere in President Rawlings' time when the IMF suggested that we break up our energy sector. Gridco, ECG, and there's a third one. We break it up and let them stand on their own. What has that created? That has created everybody being a Chenchahini in their own place. And it
working in silos.
Working in silos. And it creates this kind of situation where the cash waterfall mechanism is not working very well, because when ECG collects the money, they don't pay everybody. They keep some, and that isn't fair. So for me, I wouldn't want any kind of break up in the actual running of ECG. It is how you collect the revenue. That revenue would feed into the cash waterfall mechanism, which will now be able to pay people and other IPPs that have debt to pay. I think it is very, very important that once we get this ship back on keel, we are able to monitor it and monitor it so efficiently that it doesn't affect the ordinary man in terms of electricity.
And indeed, when we come back,